Hi everyone and welcome to episode 13 of Coffee with Cheese. I'm your host, Narciso Bomben. Well, this week's episode I've been thinking about for a while and I've always wanted to talk about it. And it was an article that I had in my most recent newsletter last Friday that really triggered it. And the article really created an analogy between personal trainers, so fitness trainers, and those in the financial advice industry, and really understanding how they're similar and why they're important. And it really got me thinking to an age-old discussion in our industry, especially you're seeing a lot of commercials these days from companies like Quest Trade around low cost. And really what it boils down to is, do you need advice or no advice? Okay, so I wanted to go through a couple of very important topics, if you will, to really understand the relationship you should be having with your money and those that can help you grow and protect your money or your net worth. So first and foremost, it really comes down to your needs, right? So when I talk about your needs, I want you to think about your financial situation holistically, right? So we talk about quite a bit on this show, growing and protecting your net worth. So a lot of times investments gets the focus, and that's important, right? As you save money, you need to invest it and grow it. But you also need to think about things a bit more holistically. What is the meaning behind the money? We talk about goals, right? So whether it's planning for retirement or a kid's education, that's an important factor to understand if you're on track. Understanding your cash flow and your net worth if they're in a positive position, right? Tax and estate planning is a very, very important topic as well. Things that you need to constantly be focused on. And then ultimately, something like risk management and protecting your net worth. So these are all different areas that should be factored in to your financial situation. So what it really boils down to now is, are you going to be your own financial planner or not, right? So when it comes to education, advice, and ongoing coaching around these areas, do you need it, right? Because if you truly don't and you believe you can do these areas on your own, then something like a self-directed investment account or something like Wealthsimple or Quest Trade or robo-advisors, certainly you can go ahead and you should not be paying any more than you really need. But in my experience, most Canadians need this help for a variety of emotional and behavioral issues, right? So that takes me to my next point, and that is around cost, right? You should always understand the cost of what you're paying for advice, whether it's in the form of just investment advice or more holistic advice. Because at the end of the day, you need to make sure that you're getting value for this. What I try and get people to think about is not just understanding the cost, but what is the worth? What is the value to you? So I must say that in my time in this industry, financial services has not made it easy for clients to understand what they're paying. That has certainly changed over the years, but we're still not at a perfect example of, you can walk into a grocery store and know exactly what you pay for a loaf of bread or a bag of milk. For something as important as your financial advice, it should become more and more clear. So I take this quite passionately to make sure that people understand this, right? And not only how much it's costing, but what is that going towards? Like what part of it is maybe for investment advice and what is more for the financial planning advice? Because at the end of the day, the reason why companies like Wealthsimple and Quest Trade cost less is really it's just the cost of managing your money. And make no mistake, it's not free. There's a cost there, okay? So understanding the cost structure and what you need is very critical to ultimately understanding how do you leverage your relationship going forward. I got to tell you, in the last handful of years, I've seen many situations, because I talk to clients and prospective clients all the time about potentially working with them. And a lot of them are dealing with, and I'm not going to pick on the banks, right? Because this is not about picking on banks or Wealthsimple or Quest Trade. This is just about speaking to the fact of what they are and what they represent. But a lot of times their money's already invested. There's embedded fees in there for advice, but they're not getting the advice. They're not getting the service, right? So the real point here is that when you're working in a situation, when you're paying for advice in that relationship, you need to make sure that it's being delivered to you. So I must also say that it takes two to tango here. As the saying goes, is that you also need to be accountable to yourself to make the time to meet with your professional advisor. But assuming you're willing to do that, if you're not getting the service that you deserve, if they're not making the time for you, certainly another thing I've heard during this pandemic is that certain institutions are just not as available to their clients. Whereas in my world, whether it's through video calls, phone calls, digital forms, in a knowledge-based industry, we can still be operating in a virtual setting, right? And giving the advice that clients deserve. So again, just closing off on that point, make sure you're leveraging the cost and the relationship, right? So number one, understand your needs. And when you truly understand your needs and what services you require, make sure that you're getting that ongoing education and advice and coaching. Do a good job. Ask about what you're paying, right? And if you don't know and you want to reach out to me, I can quickly figure that out by looking at any statement, right? And then leverage that cost, right? You're paying for it. Make sure you're getting good value, or as I'd like to call it, worth. It's not just about cost, it's what is it worth to you? And ultimately, it's about your financial well-being. Are you growing and protecting that net worth in a personalized manner that allows you and your family to enjoy all the things you want to in life? So that's it for this week's episode. I want to thank you as always for watching. Invite you to reach out with any questions or comments. And certainly if there's something you want to discuss with me one-on-one, I invite you to a virtual coffee. It'd be my pleasure to have that discussion. Thanks again for watching and have yourself a great day.